Ooh, what's going on, my fellow conservative patriots? It's your boy Kevin. Welcome back to the channel. I've been a big fan of Ben Shapiro's for the last couple of years. Listened to his podcast, bought my mom a year-long subscription to the Daily Wire this Christmas. However, I got a bone to pick with him. He's dead wrong, and he is spreading a bunch of misinformation, as the woke mob likes to say, to his viewers. And he is doing this without backing it up with any facts or data. I'm going to come correct. I'm going to come with the data, with the facts to back up my argument. Ben Shapiro is wrong, and I am going to expose him in today's video. Obviously, what I'm talking about is Ben Shapiro and his view on Donald Trump. Ben Shapiro has never been a big fan of Donald Trump, did not vote for him in 2016, said he would never vote for Donald Trump, and said that Donald Trump, the reason he could not support him was that he was not going to get conservative Supreme Court justices to the bench, and that was his main focus. Obviously, that didn't turn out. Trump got Supreme Court justices through the Senate onto the bench, and they were conservative. Even though Trump held up his end of the bargain, Ben Shapiro is still a never-Trumper. And he has spread the idea that Trump cannot win the general election in 2024. And Shapiro urges his viewers to not vote for Donald Trump in the upcoming GOP primary because we have to vote for the person with the most electability.
Electability pretends I know if you will or will not win 2 years before an election. Nonsense. Lazy for all of us. The way you win the presidential race is not through electability. It's through electoral college. So we need to start focusing on those 10, 12 swing states that are going to decide
the person who can beat Joe Biden. And I'm going to come with data in today's video and show you guys why that person, the only person who can do it, is in fact Donald Trump. All right, let's rewind to 2016 and set the stage. Here's Ben Shapiro on Larry King discussing Donald Trump and why he cannot vote for Donald Trump.
Take on the current lay of the presidential campaign.
I mean, obviously, Donald Trump has a really uphill battle. The electoral map never favored Republicans. I mean, Mitt Romney could have won Florida, Virginia, and Ohio and still lost the election. So Trump basically has to win Pennsylvania, or he has to win Wisconsin and New Hampshire and Iowa and Nevada.
How about all of those except New Hampshire? He won Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, Florida, Iowa. The fact that Ben Shapiro is referencing Iowa as a swing state shows you the kind of draw that Donald Trump has, the kind of get him to the poll power that Donald Trump has. Iowa was a Democrat state in 2008. Obama won it again in 2012. That shows you the power that Trump has to get his voters to the polls.
And I don't see a path there for him, realistically speaking, unless some major news breaks and things radically change.
Can he pivot?
Well, I mean, we're about to find out. He's trying to pivot. I have my suspicions that if he sees the polls are not going well, he doesn't seem like the type of man to stick to script if things tend not to go well.
You are a supporter of his, aren't you?
No.
You're not?
No.
Well, being with Breitbart News, I would have thought that you would be an ardent
That's
supporter.
one of the reasons I quit, yeah.
All right, so he goes on to say one of the main reasons he left Breitbart was because Steve Bannon was appointed as CEO. Bannon was going to back Trump, and Shapiro could not fall in line and back Donald Trump in the 2016 election. He said that Trump had a narrow path to victory. But remember, he won Michigan. He won Wisconsin. He won Iowa easy. He won Pennsylvania. He won Arizona, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina. Trump dominated that 2016 election. Doesn't mean that he's going to win in 2024, right? Just because he won in 2016, he's lost in 2020. He lost in 2020 since then. So the trend may be that voters are moving away from Donald Trump. But I'm going to tell you guys why that's not true. But first, let's take a listen. Ben Shapiro today, as not much has changed since that 2016 interview with Larry King.
Or you can actually think about who is most likely to win a victory. All right, time for a couple of things that I hate.
All right, so then he goes on to shill about 47 companies that really have trash products. Ben Shapiro's podcast has really turned into one giant commercial, but that's a video for another day. Today we're talking about who has the best chance to win the 2024 election from the primary side, and Birch Gold is not that person. Every single day, Ben Shapiro is highlighting how good of a job Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida and how the only way we win in 2024 is if we vote for Ron DeSantis or someone else rather than Trump. Donald Trump is a double middle finger to the woke ideology. So you would think that they would get along just fine. But the truth of the matter is, Ben Shapiro is a Harvard grad lawyer, and he just can't bring himself around to voting for a guy like Donald Trump. And that's just fine. You have your right to pick who you want to vote for. But let's be honest about it. Let's be upfront about it. Don't say it's because Trump can't win and then turn off your 100,000 podcast listeners from voting for the candidate, the only candidate who can win. That is the danger here, and it has to stop. All right, so I come with data. I come with facts to back this up. In 2012, Mitt Romney got his ass handed to him by Barack Obama. 206 electoral college votes to 332. And this map may shock some of you guys. Look at some of these states that went blue. Number one, the main one being Iowa. Iowa went twice to Barack Obama. And Donald Trump has won it back-to-back elections by huge margins. Florida went twice to Barack Obama. Wisconsin, twice to Barack Obama. Michigan, Pennsylvania, twice to Barack Obama. Nevada, twice to Barack Obama. Barack Obama dominated both John McCain and Mitt Romney. And if you think about it, Mitt Romney and John McCain were great candidates, especially John McCain. Mitt Romney's obviously a rhino, but as a presidential candidate, he fits great for Ben Shapiro. John McCain, war hero, captured in war, prisoner of war, was told you can go home if you just announce what's happening here. He wouldn't do it. John McCain is the perfect presidential candidate, got crushed. Why? Because the voters of the Midwest, the voters of Wisconsin whose family members lost their jobs, their manufacturing jobs, who were sent overseas, wanted to vote for a different kind of candidate. They didn't want to vote for a traditional candidate, so they voted for Barack Obama. I don't agree with that decision, but I get it. And Donald Trump got it. And that's why he came in 2016 with his populist message of, I will bring manufacturing back, I will shut down the border, and I will make your life better. What happens? Boom. Take a look at 2016. We have Florida. Trump wins big. We have Ohio. Did Mitt Romney win Ohio? No, look, Obama won Ohio twice. Obama won Ohio and Iowa twice in 2008, 2012. And then you fast forward to 2016, Trump wins Ohio by 8. He wins Iowa by 10 points. In one election season, one election away from losing Iowa big to Obama, one election away from losing Ohio, and Trump dominates Iowa and Ohio. If we start voting for traditional Republican candidates again that don't have a populist message, not only will we lose the election, we'll lose it just like John McCain and Mitt Romney lost it. We will lose Iowa. We will lose Ohio. We won't even come close to winning Wisconsin like Trump did in 2016. We won't even come close to winning Michigan like Trump did in 2016. How about Pennsylvania? Forget about Iowa and Ohio. For a Republican candidate to win in 2024, they're going to either have to carry Arizona, Florida, and Wisconsin, and then carry Iowa, Ohio as well, with North Carolina and Georgia. We'll look at a map later. We're talking about going back to a more traditional candidate. It just isn't going to work. And then you hear Shapiro say, his main argument, with no data, no facts to back it up, is that the 2020 election, Trump lost. He also lost in 2022. Here's why that's bullshit. Trump wasn't on the ballot in 2022. Trump's voters are only going to vote if Trump is on the ballot. So let's rewind and break down 2022. 2022 was a freak election. 2022 was an absolute freak election. Trump lost Georgia by 0.3%. He lost Arizona by 0.4%. And he lost Wisconsin by 0.4%. Those three states, he lost by a combined total of 50,000 votes. okay? 50,000 votes. So if 25,000 people change their mind and vote for Donald Trump instead of Joe Biden, Trump is still president today. In order for Donald Trump to win in 2024, let's take a look at the 2024 map. Donald Trump has to win the states that he won in 2020, Iowa, Ohio, Florida, Texas, okay? So what are we at? This is going to go blue. Minnesota's going to go blue. Let's say Michigan goes blue. Doesn't matter. Let's say Pennsylvania goes blue. Doesn't matter. He won Maine 1, I believe. We'll give it all blue. We'll say he loses New Hampshire. We'll even say he loses Nevada. All Trump has to do to win is carry Arizona, which I believe he will do. We'll talk about why in a second. I know he's going to carry Georgia for a fact. I live here in Middle Georgia. We'll talk about why he's going to carry Georgia in a second. He carried Georgia or North Carolina twice, and I also believe he carries Wisconsin. That puts him over the top at 271 electoral votes. If we go back to a traditional candidate, and I like Ron DeSantis, I really do. I think he's done a great job in Florida. But he is more of a traditional candidate versus Donald Trump, and the people of the Midwest, the people of Ohio and Iowa will not come out for a Republican candidate if Donald Trump is not on the ticket. We've seen it time and time again. The best chance the GOP has to win in 2024 is with Donald Trump on the ticket. Now, you may be thinking I'm some kind of cultist. I'm part of the Donald Trump cult, and that's not true. That is not true. I did not vote for Donald Trump in the 2016 primary. I didn't vote for him in the 2016 primary. I voted for him in the general election in 2016. I voted for him again in 2020, and I will vote for him in this upcoming 2024 primary because of the job that he did. I'm not part of the Trump or die cult, but I know as a fact that he gives us the best chance to win in 2024. It's common sense, and that common sense is backed up by the data. All right, so why am I so confident he wins in Georgia? Have to win Georgia if you're a Republican candidate, if you want to win the White House. Well, SB 202 was passed into law. Did you know that the Democrats in the 2020 election were driving around Georgia in vans picking up ballots? There was mobile voting in 2020. They were driving to projects, housing projects, inner city housing projects in Fulton County, and they would pull up, people would come out and vote. Old way, in 2020, Fulton County introduced mobile voting units to expand early voting. New way, under SB 202, mobile voting units can only be used during a declared disaster. So unless there's a disaster like COVID in 2024, there will be no mobile voting in Georgia for the 2024 election. There goes, let's say, 5,000 ballots, 5,000 people that won't show up on election day to vote. Drop boxes, the old way, 2020 election. Absentee ballot drop boxes were introduced in Georgia in 2020 as a place where voters could deposit their absentee ballots. Boxes were placed outdoors under 24/7 video surveillance and were available 24 hours per day until 7 p.m. on election day. That was 2020. In 2024, under the new law, counties may have a maximum of one box per 100,000 registered voters. Fulton County is allowed 8 absentee ballot drop boxes. Boxes are located indoors in early voting locations. The boxes are only available during early voting hours. That is a huge deal because if somebody shows up with a book bag with 500, 1,000 ballots in there, they're going to have to walk in there and stuff those ballots in the early absentee box during daylight hours, during early voting hours. We've all seen 2,000 Mules where they would pull up at night and stuff the ballot boxes. Now, they will be unable to do the ballot harvesting. So let's say the mobile voting does away with 5,000 votes. That's already enough to hand Trump Georgia. Then let's say this does away with another 5,000 votes. And plus, Joe Biden has done a terrible job as president. There's another 20,000 votes. Trump is going to win Georgia in 2024. Here's another 5,000 votes. Prior to the passage of SB 202, signature verification was the primary means of checking voter identity for absentee ballots. This is a huge deal, absentee ballots in Georgia. Also, absentee ballots could be requested up until the Friday before Election Day. The new law, the new way. Under the new law, voters who wish to cast their ballot by absentee ballot must provide their driver license number or other forms of ID specified on the ballot form. Request their ballot at least 11 days before the election. Use the updated absentee ballot form. Boom. So that is going to do away with at least, I think, 40 to 50,000 votes. Okay, so not only are we going to have 50,000 less votes to worry about, but also Joe Biden has done a terrible job, and the voters of Georgia know this, and Brian Kemp won re-election easily in his governor race. So Georgia is not going back to Biden. I really have a good feeling about Georgia. Okay, so we also have to carry Arizona, and some new laws have been passed in Arizona. Okay, counties that use early ballots must now implement a tracking system that lets voters know their ballot has been received, verified, and counted or rejected. Previously, only Maricopa and Pima counties did this. Another law aimed at early voting requires people dropping off their ballots to show identification for them to be counted on site, leading to officials will warn will be long lines and inconvenienced voters. All right? Who cares? As long as our elections are safe, who cares about long lines and inconvenienced voters? You have multiple weeks of early voting. There shouldn't be long lines. You have multiple weeks of early voting in Arizona. If you're legally voting, it shouldn't matter if you have to show your ID, right? Who cares? You can go on your lunch break. There's weeks of early voting. And then to add on top of that, we have the requirement for voters to prove their U.S. citizenship to vote in presidential elections in Arizona, a new law that was passed. Boom. Trump wins Arizona. Trump wins Georgia. Wisconsin is the final checker piece that we need to knock off the board in order to take back the White House in 2024. So how do we do it? First of all, Wisconsin is a voter ID state. Good news there. Second of all, in 2008, Obama versus McCain, Wisconsin went to Obama 56-42, a 14% win for Barack Obama. Okay, fast forward to 2012. Obama wins by a little more than 6%. And then fast forward to 2016, Trump wins by about 1%. Fast forward to 2020, Trump loses by less than 0.4%. So the trend is that Wisconsin is becoming more and more conservative, and we cannot look at 2020 as a data set. We just cannot use 2020 because of how weird of an election it was. You had COVID, you had mass mail-in voting, you had absentee voting. It was just a mess, right? It's going to go back to that trend, I do believe, and I think Trump wins Wisconsin by about 1.5%, 2%. It'll be close, but I think Trump wins. If we go back to 270 to win, we have Wisconsin going to Trump. We have Georgia going to Trump. We have Arizona going to Trump. This is how I believe if it's Biden v. Trump in 2024. I think Nevada goes red. I believe Michigan probably goes blue, but I think Pennsylvania could go red. So that would put Trump at 296, 241. Huge win for Donald Trump. Ben Shapiro's argument that Trump cannot win in 2024 is so stupidly flawed. Look at Michigan. In 2016, when Trump won the White House, he got 2.2 million votes in Michigan. In 2020, he got 2.6 million votes in Michigan. Look at Wisconsin. In 2016, when he won, he got 1.4 million votes in Wisconsin. In 2020, when he lost, he got 1.6 plus million votes in Wisconsin. He got more votes in every single state in 2020 than he did in 2016. But he lost, okay? So it's not like there's a lack of voters. 2020 was just a freak election. Not only do we have a freak election, but in between the freak election, and we're not going to see similar voting patterns as we did in 2020. There's no mobile voting in Georgia. Arizona has tightened down, and Wisconsin has tightened down. You're going to have to show ID, no mobile voting, and a crackdown on ballot harvesting. So not only do we have to eliminate that, that's no longer an issue, we now have the GOP arguing to vote early. We had Trump, which was a mistake, arguing to vote in person, which was a mistake. I'll admit that was a mistake, and I voted in person. But I will be voting early, and we have to vote early. We have to bank those votes early. That's going to happen. That is going to help. Furthermore, Joe Biden has done a terrible job. He's done a terrible job. And if you do not believe that there's 25,000 people who voted for Joe Biden in 2020 who would love to have that vote back and vote for Donald Trump in 2024, then you've lost your damn mind. You've lost your mind if you don't think that there are some remorseful voters, people who voted for Joe Biden in 2020, people who will not vote for Joe Biden in 2024. All right, so let's talk polling data. Richard Bears, who runs the People's Pundit, he also owns the Big Data Poll. And if you've never listened to his podcast, it's a great listen, The People's Pundit on YouTube. He has found through his polling that Donald Trump has this coalition of voters, his true voters, those Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Ohio voters, those Rust Belt voters, they will only vote for Donald Trump. It makes up of about 8% of the Republican base. So 8% of those voters will not vote for anybody else other than Donald Trump. And that data is supported by what we have seen. Okay? So let's make a graph. Let's start at 2008 with McCain. You have the Rust Belt. Since 2008, the Rust Belt states have looked like this. You have the GOP down here, the GOP winning these Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio, and we finally did that in 2016. 2008, with McCain running, this is the losing side of it, and down here we have winning once you cross this threshold. We finally crossed that in 2016. In 2020, you had COVID. It was a freak election, and we crossed back to losing those Rust Belt states. But the trend still supports that we're heading back towards winning those Rust Belt states. The only reason we didn't win it in 2020 because it was a freak election. The ballot boxes were getting stuffed. There was absentee ballots. There was paper floating around like it was a paper factory. And it was just a weird election that you cannot use as a data set. Okay, so that theory is out the window. The theory of 2018, Trump losing the midterms, that theory is out the window too because Donald Trump was not on the ballot. And remember, the data supports that these voters only come out, they are only motivated when Donald Trump's name is on the ballot. Now, I will admit that the Republican Party has a Donald Trump problem. They have to figure out how to move on from Donald Trump once he is out of politics. He's not out of politics yet, so we don't need to move on. There's still an election where he is a very viable candidate, probably the odds-on favorite to win against Joe Biden. Hands down, odds-on favorite to win against Joe Biden. But in 2028, we have to figure out how to move on. Ben Shapiro's wrong. The data says you're wrong. And if you don't want to support Donald Trump, that's fine. But as the voice, one of the bigger voices of the conservative movement, be honest about it. Don't try to divide and separate and fracture this conservative movement, the MAGA movement. Just be honest. Say you don't like the guy. You can't bring yourself to vote for the guy. But as a huge voice of the party, you cannot try to fracture the movement because it'll hurt the movement. Maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he does better as a business if a Democrat is in power. Wouldn't shock me at all if his numbers, his viewers are angrier and they're more willing to buy a subscription to the Daily Wire if Joe Biden is in office. So he truly wants Joe Biden back in the White House in 2024. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with me? Is Shapiro a never Trumper? Does he need to fall in line and back the party's leader? Would it be better for the party to move on from Trump? Let me know what you think in the comments. Love you guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. Until next time, peace.